Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to edit this brand new short form viral editing style completely from scratch. This is the most value-packed tutorial you'll find, and we're going to be breaking it down into 3 key steps. Step 1, we're going to prepare our footage, cutting and pasting, and even generating subtitles inside of Premiere Pro. Step 2, we're going to be jumping into After Effects and creating 3 high-quality animations: a sleek button selector, a mysterious glowing ball, and an advanced 3D UI scene. Step 3, finally, I'll even show you my sound design workflow on how I bring these animations to life. And here is a sneak peek of what you're going to be able to create by the end of this masterclass. And there's always 3 main problems they're struggling with. If you want to go even deeper on editing styles like this, Ultimate Editors has over 300 plus editing courses, but more on this later on in the video. Now, let's dive right in. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started on creating our cuts and preparing our footage. To prepare our footage, first we need to make the cuts, we need to do the pacing, and we also need to do the subtitles inside of Premiere Pro so that we can drag everything into After Effects. So let's go ahead and get started on doing this. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is drag in my footage into the timeline. Let's first take care of my cuts. We're going to go and select our razor tool using C. Now we're going to make a cut right after I stop speaking and right before I start speaking again to isolate the silence in the middle. We're going to select this and delete it and delete the silence in the middle. So let's go ahead and do this for the rest of the entire short. So here we go. All of our raw cuts are basically complete. Now we can get to work on our J cuts. All we have to do is just go over to whichever video and then hold down Alt, drag our video back a few frames, and then just overlap the layer like so. And we're going to get a J cut. Let's go ahead and do this for the rest of the entire short. And with this done, now we've completed the pacing and the J cuts, it's time to quickly pull up the subtitles. Let's go ahead and select all this, go up to Window, go down to Text. We're going to click on Create Captions from Transcript. Change the maximum length to 20. Change the minimum duration to 2 seconds. And we're going to set the lines to single. And we're going to click on Transcribe and Create Captions. Awesome. There we go. Let's go ahead and create a quick editing style for this. We're going to select all of these, go over to our windows, into our properties panel like this. Then we're going to first start by setting the font to the Nexa font. We're going to go with Nexa Light. We're going to place these in the center like so, but drag them down so that they are slightly in the lower third. Then we're going to remove the drop shadow in the background, and basically that's pretty much it. Now, if we are satisfied with our text, we could just select all of these, go up to Graphics and Titles, and click on Upgrade Caption to Graphic, and we basically have caption layers now. So all that I gotta do now is just bring this into After Effects and we're good to go. So we're gonna select all of this, we're gonna right click and we're gonna click on Replace with After Effects Composition. Now once we do drag in everything into After Effects, you guys are gonna notice if we take a look at our timeline, there's a lot of pre-composed sequences and everything just looks weird. So let's go ahead and select all of our pre-composed sequences, which is actually our text, and place them up at the top. We're just going to align all of this footage together. Now we're going to select all of our pre-compositions, go up to our layer, and we're going to use a plugin called Unprecompose. It's a completely free plugin. It just allows us to unprecompose all these layers and reveal the text inside of them. So the last thing that we're going to do is actually select our footage and place it right under the text that finishes off our footage. This is going to isolate the text to each clip which we've got. Okay. This being said, this completes our preparing stage, and we can now move into stage 1, which is creating the first animation. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I have spoken with lots and lots of business owners, and there's always 3 main problems they're struggling with. Now, so I'm going to quickly select these first 3 texts over here and click on P, and I'm just going to bring them down to my lower third. This being said, I'm now going to stylize the text and add a quick animation to them. To stylize our text, I'm just going to be selecting it and adding in the deep glow effect, and we're going to just set the glow strength to 0.2. So now I'm going to copy this deep glow and apply it to the other 2 texts, just like this. And now to create a quick animation, I'm going to zoom in on my first text here, click on S, so I'll keyframe the scale, move it forward, have it start at 0. Now I'm going to select both of these, go into my speed graph and make sure it starts quickly and then slows down. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on T, I'm going to keyframe my opacity and move it somewhere over to here, and then I'm going to have it start at 0%. This is going to make it fade in. Let's go ahead and copy these and then just paste them on the front of our other 2 texts, just like this. I have spoken with lots and lots. So let's go ahead and get started on working on this. The first thing I'm going to do is create a background. So I'm going to right click and click on New and add a solid. All right. Now on my solid, I'm going to be adding in the 4 color gradient effect. I'm going to make one of these colors a black color. And I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool to make all of them black as well. I'm going to go ahead and make this an orange influenced background by making color 2 a slight orange like this, like a really dark orange. Let's make it like that. Color 3 a really dark red, and just increase the blend to 200. So now we can get to work on these shape layers. I'm going to right click and add in a new shape layer. Now I'm going to use my square mask to hold down shift and draw out a square over here. Then I'm going to select my shape layer, click on R and write out 45 degrees so that it's rotated by 45 degrees, which gives us a rhombus. Now let's go ahead and color this by adding in the 4-color gradient effect on this. Then I'm going to put all of my corners on the corners of the rhombus. And then we're just going to color them going from a light orange to a darker orange. So to stylize this a bit more, I'm going to right click my shape layer and go to layer styles and click on inner glow. Now in my inner glow, I'm going to start by increasing the opacity and bumping up the size until I can see it. And then I'm going to increase the range to 100 and I'm going to set the color to a dark kind of red. Then just set the blending mode to normal. And now we could tone down the opacity to 50%. Now to stylize this a bit more, I'm actually adding in the light sweep effect and I'm placing it over here in the center and I'm increasing the width and dropping the intensity to 15. All right, now it's time to add the text on top of this shape layer. So we're going to right click and add in a new text layer. Inside of my text layer, I'm typing out the number 1 and then I'm also setting it to a Nexa heavy font. Then let's go ahead and scale this thing up like this and make sure it's at the center of the rhombus. Now to stylize this a bit more, we're going to be adding in the deep glow on top of our number 1 and we're setting the exposure to 0.2. And also add a deep glow to the shape layer and set the exposure to 0.05. Now I'm going to parent the number 1 to the shape layer under it. And finally, I'm going to set them both to 3D layers. Now let's go ahead and scale this thing down to like 70. And let's go ahead and place it up at the top like so. Now I'm going to select both of these and click on Ctrl D to duplicate them. Bring the layer all the way up. Then we're going to select the bottom shape layer, click on P and bring the position over to the middle. That's going to create our second shape layer. Select both of them again, duplicate them, bring them up to the top, select the bottom shape layer and bring it all the way down to the bottom. Now make sure to type out the number 2 in the center and type out the number 3 at the bottom. Now let's quickly create a pop-in animation for all 3 of these. Since all of these are controlled by these 3 shape layers, I'm selecting all 3 of them and clicking on P. Then we're going to keyframe the current position, move back and have it start on the left side over here. Then let's go ahead and select all of these and smoothen it out in the speed graph. Now with this being said, we're going to select all of them now, click on T for transparency, keyframe the opacity and then click on U so that we can see both of our keyframes. Go back to the beginning and have them all start at 0% opacity. And there's always 3 main problems. Now we're going to just make sure that we offset them a little bit. Hey guys, just wanted to say real quick, if you're finding this masterclass very, very useful and you're following along, we've got more than 300 other courses that you could check out on video editing alone. They're all inside of Ultimate Editors and we've even put together a special course package for you guys. The link is going to be down below if you guys want to check it out. And now it's finally time to get to work on our line animation. To do this, we're going to be adding in a new shape layer. And now to create the line, we're going to be selecting the shape layer, clicking our pen tool, and we're going to just be tracing out a line that goes around the sides of these shape layers. Now we're going to go under our shape layer and delete the fill, and we're going to add in a stroke of 1. Now to create the selector, we're going to be duplicating this shape layer and then just going under our stroke and increasing it. Let's get started by animating our line coming in. So I'm going to make this top line over here invisible and I'm going to select my baseline and add in the trim paths effect. Now in the trim paths effect, I'm going to keyframe the end and set it to 0, but move this keyframe all the way to the beginning of our line. Then we're going to move forward a little bit and animate it going up to 100% and smooth this out in the speed graph. Now this is where we basically want our cursor to come in and start selecting them. So let's get started by designing our cursor. We're going to just right click and add in a shape layer. And on this shape layer, we're going to use our ellipse tool to draw out a perfect circle by holding down shift. We're going to set this circle's color to a white and scale it down to something like 25. Now to separate it from the background, we're going to add a deep glow to this circle. Now to keyframe the path for this cursor, let's go ahead and click on P for position and keyframe the position and move that keyframe over here to the beginning. Let's go over to our keyframe and make sure that our cursor starts in the top right. Now let's move forward and have it go all the way down to our number 2. Now if we select this and click on our pen tool, we can add a point in the center like so. Then I'm going to use my cursor tool to move this point all the way over to here, which creates our curve. Now we're going to go over inside of the speed graph and smoothen it out. Now there's one final step in this animation, and it is to make the shape layers interact with our cursor. So to do this, we're just going to go over to where our cursor first hits our first shape layer. We're going to keyframe the current scale. We're going to move forward a few frames and just bump up the scale by 5. Now, as our cursor is leaving the shape layer, I'm going to add another keyframe and just move forward a little bit and move it back to 50. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the 2. Keyframe the scale, move forward and have it come up to 55. Now, another thing I also want to add is that selector line that hovers over our shape layer once the cursor comes in. So to do this, we're going to go back to our line which we made invisible. We're going to make it visible again, and we're going to go ahead and add the trim paths function. Now we go over to where the cursor hits our first shape layer, change the end to a value that appears after our shape layer, and change the start to a value that appears before our shape layer. And now I'm just going to keyframe the start and the end over here, and then move back to where the cursor isn't on the shape layer, and move this back to 0%. Now go into our speed graph and just make sure that these start quick and slow down. Now our cursor continues on to the 2, so we're going to move over to where the cursor hits our second shape layer and just make sure to change the start and end value to our second shape layer. Most of the stuff that we're covering are heavy After Effects concepts, so if you're this far into the video and you feel like you don't have a good grasp of After Effects, that's okay. We've just dropped a brand new After Effects masterclass inside of Ultimate Editors. You guys can check it out. The link is down below. This masterclass will teach you everything from A to Z about After Effects that you need to create animations like these. And one final piece of this animation is we're going to make our cursor click and the shape layer behind it click. So to do this, once our cursor lands on our second shape layer, we're going to select our cursor, click on S, keyframe the current scale, move forward and have it come down to 45. Then we're going to take the shape layer on which it is on, click on S, keyframe the current scale, move it forward, and also have it scale down to 50. Now, as soon as the cursor clicks, we're going to just make sure that everything fades out afterwards. So we're going to be selecting all of our layers, click on T, just make sure you don't select the background with them, keyframe our current opacity over here, and then we're going to move forward and we're basically going to select all of them and have them all drop down to 0%. Now, one special thing you can also do, we're going to extend our second shape layer over here slightly further and move our opacity keyframes slightly forward. Then we're going to extend our cursor over here and also move our opacity keyframes forward. So let's select these three over here and click on the 3D icon. Everything should stay the same. I think the last thing I'm going to do is just add in a deep glow to the highlight that we've got over here on the right side and set it to 0.4. Now, to bring this entire scene to life, we're going to be adding in a camera and creating our scene. And this is the last part. So let's go ahead and right click and add in a camera. Let's cut right before our scene and right after our scene ends. Actually, I'm going to make one cut right here after the reveal happens. Now for this first scene, I'm just going to keyframe the current position, move it forward, and just have it start slightly zoomed out like this. If we smooth this out in the speed graph, we're going to get a smooth zoom in. Now for our second scene, we're basically going to bring the camera really close to the lines and we're going to just start it up top on our number 1. And we're going to keyframe its current position, move it to the back. And then once the cursor comes down to number 2, we're going to have the camera pan down to our number 2. Let's go and smoothen this out in the speed graph. And with this being said, guys, that completes it for our first animation. We get this very smooth cursor that comes in and selects our shape layers like so. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying this masterclass and finding it useful, I've got something special for you. Let's be honest, learning video editing on YouTube can be crazy. There's no real plan, it's unorganized, and when you face that one bug that you can't seem to fix, you have to search for a whole hour just to find the fix for it. The thing is, this is the slowest and most frustrating way to learn video editing. Let's face it, if you really want to learn video editing and start making money with it, you need a structured step-by-step program that will teach you the editing programs, teach you the viral editing styles, and teach you how to land clients in 2025. That's exactly why I built Ultimate Editors, the 90-day program that's designed to allow you to master video editing and make money with it in just 90 days. Here is exactly how it works. In the first 30 days, we're going to master Premiere Pro and After Effects with 100 plus in-depth courses, and people have been loving how amazing these courses are. In the next 30 days, we're going to learn 7 viral editing styles that get clients in 2025, like Josh Leon, Houston Cold, Iman Gaji, my editing style, and much more. And in just 30 days, you will learn how to edit like 7 viral creators. And in the last 30 days, we're going to build out your personal brand, post the content that attracts clients, and land your first $1,000 per month editing deal. And this system works. Our students are closing $1,000 per month, $2,000 per month, even $3,000 per month deals with this exact system. So if you want to master high-level video editing, learn the viral editing styles of 2025, and close your first $1,000 per month editing deal all in just 90 days, check out Ultimate Editors. The link is going to be down in the description below. But with all this being said, let's get back into the video. Now let's go ahead and move on to animation number 2. The first thing I'm going to do is extend my background over to this section as well. So the first thing I need to create is the circle in the center of the screen. So I'm going to do this by adding in a new shape layer. And I'm going to use my ellipse tool and hold down Shift to draw out a perfect circle. I'm first going to add in a 4-color gradient. And I'm going to place 2 of my points in the top left and 2 of my points in the bottom right. I'm going to make my top 2 points a bright pinkish red. Then I'm going to make my other 2 points a really light red and increase the blend to 150. Now to stylize this a bit more, we're going to be duplicating our shape layer. Then we're going to delete the 4-color gradient. Then we're going to change the fill type to a radial gradient. Now I'm going to click on my color. I'm going to set the first color to a black and move it somewhere like halfway through the line. I'm going to set my second color to this really light red. Then I'm going to get these 2 sliders over here. I'm going to extend one of them out like so. And I'm going to click on toggle switches and modes and set its blending mode to add. Now if we click on our ellipse path, we can place this bright white corner in the top left. We're going to be adding the deep glow effect on this other outer edge, and we're going to be toning it down to 0.2. Then we're going to select our shape layer and just smoothen out this edge because right now it's really harsh. And also don't forget to add a deep glow to the main layer itself, set the exposure to 0.1, and there you go. Alright, now all that we have to do is parent the top shape layer to the bottom one, and we have our cool circle. Let's make sure that both of these are 3D layers as well. And let's go ahead and scale down the bottom shape layer, like so. Now we're going to get to work on our background. So to do this, we're going to add in another shape layer, and then let's select our ellipse tool and just draw out a big ellipse on top of everything. Make sure to set the fill type to a regular color, and place this shape layer under our circle, and then just go ahead and try to center this shape layer with the circle on top of it. Now all that we have to do is go into our shape layer and delete the fill, then just add a stroke of 2. Now we're going to click on S for our scale and size it down. All we got to do is keyframe the current scale, move all the way back and have it start at 0. Let's go into our speed graph and make sure it starts quick and then slows down. And now to create a bigger background, we're going to duplicate this shape layer and then go to our second keyframe and make the scale bigger, and duplicate it one more time, go to our second keyframe and make the scale slightly bigger. Now we're just going to offset them by moving our bottom shape layer all the way to the right and the one on top of it slightly to the right. Now let's also move our circle over here to the right. Select the bottom shape layer, keyframe the current scale, move back and have it start at 0. And then just make sure it starts fast and slows down in the speed graph. Now there's one final thing to do, and it is to add in those filler circles inside of the background. So let's quickly make one. We're going to add in a new shape layer, and we're just going to draw out another ellipse. Then we're going to set the fill type to a radial gradient, but this time we're going to set the end color to a really light gray. And let's go ahead and make this as smooth as possible on the edge. We're also going to add the deep glow effect to it. And then let's go ahead and scale it down to 20. Keyframe its current scale, move back and have it start at 0. Let's make sure it starts quick and then slows down in the speed graph as well. Now we're just going to duplicate it like 10 times. And all we're going to do is click on P on all of them and simply spread them out throughout the scene. Okay, then I'm going to click on S and go to their second keyframe and just randomize their scale so that some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. And with this set, we're going to select all of them, click on P, keyframe the current position, move it all the way back, move our playhead to the end of the animation, and we're just going to select each one and just spread it out. All right, finally, I'm just going to offset all of them like this, just to make sure that some of them start randomly. Now with this being said, I'm going to go to my circle shape layer, go to my second keyframe, and I'm going to go all the way to the end and just scale this thing up until it's bigger than the screen. Now let's select both of these keyframes, go into our speed graph, and let's make sure it starts super slow and ends very fast. And this, ladies and gentlemen, does it for our second animation. That's the final result, a cool circle popping with a very cool void and a circle that takes up the rest of the screen. Now we can finally move into animation number 3. Now for animation 3, we have a very cool thing in mind. We've got like a field with a bunch of problems and one in the center that's focused. This one's probably going to take us the longest, so let's go ahead and get to work on it. By the end of animation number 2, we have a big ball that takes up the screen. So I'm going to take both of those layers and extend them all the way out. Then we're going to duplicate our original background here, move it on top of our circle layers, and just have it start as the cut happens. Now we're going to click on T, keyframe the current opacity, move forward, and keyframe it again. Go to our first opacity and move it down to 0%. Okay, and now we're just going to align it on top of these like this. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've watched this far into the video, I can tell that you're probably finding this masterclass very, very useful. And I can promise you that you can find the other 300 plus courses on video editing even more fascinating than this one over here. We've put them all together for you guys. The link is down below. You can just click the link to get access to all of my masterclasses on video editing, just like this one. All right, let's first design our UI, and then we're going to duplicate it and create a bunch of them. So first, I'm right-clicking and adding in a shape layer. I'm going to use my rectangle tool to draw out a rectangle in the center and change the fill type to a regular fill. Let's go down to the rectangle and round off the corners. And then we're going to add in a 4-color gradient. and we're going to place the points on all the corners. Now I'm just going to use some light gray and dark gray variants to get this UI background and set the blend to 200. And let's tone down the opacity to 40%. Now on top of this, we're going to be duplicating this specific shape layer. We're going to be deleting the 4-color gradient, and we're going to place this shape layer under our previous shape layer. Now we're going to go down to our fill and set the color to a black, and we're going to add in the light sweep effect on top of this. Make sure to place it at the center. Let's increase the width, and let's drop the sweep intensity. We're going to keyframe the current direction, click on new, move the keyframe all the way back, and then just orient the direction differently later on. Now we're going to set the blending mode of this shape layer to add, and add a deep glow to the light sweep. Now let's get started on filling in this UI. So first I'm adding in a text layer, and I'm going to type out problem 1. Now let's go ahead and place problem 1 in the top left over here, and let's set its transparency to 80%. Then let's go ahead and right click and add in another shape layer, and let's use the ellipse tool to draw a circle in the top right corner. Use the eyedropper tool to get the background color, and then just simply make it darker. Alright, now we're going to duplicate our main problem text over here and just move it down to the bottom and type out a longer description. Now we're just going to scale it down and place it on the left side. Double click and set the font type to light, and you're good to go. Now let's add in another shape layer on top of all of these. And for this one, we're drawing out a simple line from this edge all the way to this edge. And then we're going to add in a stroke of 2 and set the color to white. All right, now let's go ahead and import an icon of some problems. Let's add a gradient ramp to this icon. Let's set the start to a light gray and set the end to a slightly darker gray. Now let's go ahead and place this over here in the bottom, and let's scale it down until it looks natural. Now on top of this, we're also going to be adding in the grain effect, set the viewing mode to the final output, and add it at an intensity of 1.5. Now let us also add the light sweep effect on top of this, set the center to the center of the icon, expand the width, and increase the intensity of the edges. Let's go ahead and drop the edge intensity to 25 and increase the width. Alright, finally, we're going to finish it all off with a deep glow. So we're going to be adding in an adjustment layer and adding the deep glow to the adjustment layer. Then let's select the adjustment layer with the phone icon and pre-compose them together. Finally, let's tone down the glow strength to 0.3. Now, as a final touch of detail, I'm going to add in one last shape layer. I'm going to be drawing out a square right where the icon is. Then let's add some roundness to its corners, set its color to a really dark black. Let's place it under our icon, and let's tone down the opacity to 30%. Now with this all nice and complete, let's toggle switches and modes and make all of these a 3D layer. And then we're going to select all of these together, right click and pre-compose all these layers. Make sure your pre-composition is still a 3D layer and you're good to go. Now we're going to duplicate this around 5 times. And then we're going to add in another view and then set our second view to a custom view 1. Finally, I'm going to spread my first duplicate over here in the top left, my second duplicate over here in the top right, my third duplicate over here on the right side, my fourth duplicate in the bottom, and my fifth duplicate over here on the left side. Finally, let's select all of the duplicates and move them forward so that we can create some depth in between these layers. Let's take our first pre-composition and click on P, keyframe the current position, move back and have it start slightly lower, then click on T, keyframe the current opacity, click on U so that we can see all our keyframes, move the opacity to the second position keyframe and drop the opacity to 0% at the beginning. Now if we take this into our speed graph and make them start quick and then slow down, now I'm going to delay all 5 of our duplicates till later on. And finally, to bring this entire animation together, I'm adding in a camera. And we're going to start the camera keyframed over here on our problem. And then we're going to move forward to where our duplicates appear on the screen and simply zoom out until we can see them all together. Now our background is zooming out with it. That's because our background is a 3D layer as well. So we're going to make this a 2D layer and we'll be good to go. Now let's select both of these keyframes and smoothen this movement out in the speed graph. And finally, I'm going to cut the animation right where our scene finishes. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, now we have completed the cuts, we've completed the pacing, and we've completed all 3 of our high quality animations. The final step is to bring these all to life with sound design, and I'll quickly go through this inside of Premiere Pro. So let's jump into Premiere Pro and start working on our sound design. The first thing I'm going to need is my own sound effects library. And if you guys don't know how to make this, I've explained this in previous videos before. But now I'm going to drag in my sound effects library into Premiere Pro and let's get started analyzing what's happening in the scene. Alright, so the first thing we've got in this video is a quick zoom in over here. So I'm going to need a sharp whoosh for that. So for this, I'm going to import half of this whoosh over here and I'm going to use it for the zoom in up front. I have spoken with lots and lots of... Now the first thing we see in this animation is we've got 3 UI elements that pop into frame. So we're going to need some UI clicks for that. I'm going to align this first UI click over here with the first shape layer pop-up. So let's go ahead and do this. And then I'm going to align the second UI click with the second shape layer, and the third UI click with the third shape layer. And now we've got the line actually drawing out, so we're going to need some kind of cool glitch, kind of computer glitch sound effect for that. So the line starts drawing out here, so I'm going to make sure that this sound effect starts here and drop it down to 1 step. There's a big slide over here, the camera is sliding across the screen, so I'm going to need a big whoosh for this. So I'm going to drag in this big whoosh over here.
Always 3 main problems.
Let's first start with the cursor, since the cursor comes flying into the screen. I'm thinking one of these cyber whooshes. Let's go and drag this in and give this one a shot.
3 main problems they're struggling with.
Now, when this thing hovers over the buttons, I want it to feel like they actually hovered. So I'm going to add in a physical click as the button kind of scales up. Okay, maybe one of these might work. Let's try it. So one right here and one right here.
Main problems they're struggling.
Now, once the click happens, I do need a very significant effect. So let's look for some kind of click sound effect. That sounds very nice. We're going to go with this high-pitched UI sound effect here.
And there's always 3 main problems they're struggling with. Now,
and that's basically it for animation number 1. Now let's go and move on to animation number 2. The first thing we've got in animation number 2 is we've got 3 rings which go out, and so we need a really cool whoosh for this. So I've got this cool water whoosh here, and let's go ahead and give this a shot by placing it right here.
Dissecting these problems,
I think that's basically perfect. Now we've got a bunch of these bubbles pop in everywhere, so we're going to need a very, very complex sound effect for that. So I'm going to go ahead and drag in this kind of computer glitch sound effect, and I'm going to add in a studio reverb on this sound effect. Now the animation finishes right here, so I'm making a cut and I'm only adding in some silence afterwards. Then I'm going to nest both of these together like so, and I'm going to add a studio reverb to the entire nest and set the studio reverb to a vocal reverb large.
Problems, it's always like a
better. Now we finally need one more sound effect for the circle scaling in. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a deep voice whoosh for the circle scaling in.
Dissecting these problems, it's always
nice. Now I'm going to go to the point where this thing is the biggest, and I'm going to need a huge whoosh for this. I'm actually going to use this big, huge deep voice whoosh over here, and I'm going to overlay it right over the cut, and I'm going to overlay it with another synthetic whoosh that has a harsher hit, just because this will be a very nice combination.
Always like a void, constantly growing. Issue is
awesome. And there we go, guys. That completes it for animation number 2. Now for animation number 3, I believe this one's the simplest. Let's go ahead and get to work on it. The first thing we've got is a pop-up of a UI. So this is going to be really easy. We're going to add a UI pop-up sound effect. I'm going with this UI sound effect over here. So let's go ahead and drag this in. And now as we zoom out, we're going to need a big whoosh in this background. So let's go ahead and find a big whoosh. Let's go ahead and use this one. This one seems pretty good.
It's hard to identify which problem we just...
And I'm actually going to add another UI sound effect right after this whoosh, just to make sure that we really highlight these other UIs popping.
Identify which problem we just solved.
Just like so. Ladies and gentlemen, that completes the sound design for this entire short. Now let's go ahead and work on adding in our music. So this is a synthwave mysterious soundtrack, and I think this would work really nicely for this short. So let's go ahead and drag this into our timeline. And I'm going to align the beat drop right after the beginning of our first animation. This way our viewer gets built up into the beat drop using our hook, but also gets that beat drop as soon as the first animation begins. So let's go ahead and check this out.
And there's always 3 main problems they're struggling with.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, that completes the entire edit. Sound design, animations, all 3 of them, cuts, pacing. After all this editing, we finally get to enjoy this beautiful short which we've created. Here it is in all of its glory. Enjoy, guys.
I have spoken with lots and lots of business owners, and there's always 3 main problems they're struggling with. Now, as we're dissecting these problems, it's always like a void, constantly growing. Issue is, once we do come to the solution, it's hard to identify which problem we just solved. And this is where we get stuck.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know down below if you guys enjoy this longer format, or if you guys want me to go back to the shorter videos. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you guys are enjoying these videos. Check out Ultimate Editors if you guys want more in-depth masterclasses just like this one. Seriously, don't miss out on this stuff. And with this being said, God bless you guys. And we're now posting pretty consistently, so stay tuned for our next upload next week. Or if you can't wait, feel free to watch one of these 2 tutorials over here. They're both just as valuable as the one you just watched.